Hello. How are you? Happy Tuesday. It's good to see you guys. So glad you're with us. I'm seeing some of our regular family. William, I saw you there. Excited to have you back. Laura Ann. Hi, you guys. Lorraine, Laura Ann, and Lorraine. I love it. Delina. Good to see you. Alex. Um, Courtney. I love that. Melissa, good to see you guys. I'm looking over, seeing so many of our guys we're just like friends and family now. I love it. So I hope you guys had a good week. Diego and I were just talking before that we went live that it feels like we can't believe it's Tuesday already. And I told him it was because I thought he spent all those days with me when we were in Nashville that he was probably like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again. he might just be a little bit sick of me, but that's okay. It's all good. Anyway, it last week was a really, really full week for sure. And it's been coming off of a really busy season for me, and so it's been a little bit of the last few days for me anyway. I don't know how you guys are when you travel, but I love it, Diego. Never sick of Bev. Time does fly, Adam, for sure. When I'm work, travel, and doing a lot of travel back to back, for me personally, I have to have kind of a pull completely back and almost sort of cocoon a little bit to just refresh myself. Some of it has to do with putting things away. I don't think I'd fully unpacked my suitcase for like a couple months. So it was nice to put those things away and do laundry and just sort of clean up some things and sort of regroup and reset so that you can come back fresh and excited about everything. And man, last week my head was just so full of wonderfulness just because I met so many great people. The workshop was amazing, and just kind of re-going through that. And then other people that I've known for some time. You know how this business is. You can know someone, especially, sorry, I have something on my lip that is driving me nuts, especially in my part of it, which is I work with agents all the time, some of whom I've never met in person. So I was able to meet two of those people last week. And so that was fun. You feel like you know them, but you actually haven't met them. Lisa Arnold was another one. She and I have not worked together before, but we have all the same like friends and colleagues. I don't know if any of you guys know Lisa Arnold. She directed Bringing Back Christmas, which is coming out theatrically, and our friend Lee Allen is in that, and it just won an award at the Tennessee like Faith Festival. I don't remember the exact title of the festival, but it won most inspiration or best inspirational. So anyway, I had never actually met her. We had been at functions together, but and at the same time, and I would see her like across a room, but we'd never actually had a conversation. It's weird. Do you guys have any of those friends like that? So you forget you haven't actually met them in person because you just have so many people in common and you kind of know what the other's doing. So anyway, that was great too. Had dinner one night and yeah, so it was great. So anyway, but we're back tonight and going to answer your questions. So one thing I did want to bring up from last week, and it was pointed out to me. I don't know if I don't see her on here so far. Monty Halliburton Crosby. I don't see her on here tonight, but she mentioned the fact that everyone played their monologues last week straight to camera and that I didn't correct that. So she was asking, like, is that the new norm? Because normally for film and television, you would not look into the camera. And so I did want to point out she's 100% correct. For a performance, an audition, whether you're doing a monologue or scripted lines, a dialogue scene, you do not want to look directly into camera. So I should have actually made that adjustment. I think last week we had a lot going on and it just didn't really catch me. And so thank you, Monty, for pointing that out. And I want all of you guys who did your monologues last week and those of you who tuned in last week, the monologues were amazing, but I should have corrected them to look slightly off camera. So right now I'm looking directly into my camera and they should have played it slightly off, or however you set the eye lines for your various characters. But for film and television, just like in an in-person audition, you don't want to use the casting director or producers as your eye line because it gets uncomfortable. In film and television, unless they're purposely breaking the fourth wall for the script as kind of a mechanism, storytelling mechanism, the actors would never look into camera on film and television projects. So you should not either. So I should have corrected each person to say, look slightly off camera or, set your eye lines, but instead of directly to camera, set your eye line slightly off and play it that way. So anyway, just wanted to say that and make sure, because others of you might have wondered as well, because again, that's not a norm for us. So, okay, so I'm looking at, okay, William. So how do you approach identifying the perfect fit for a role during the casting process? Some of that is tangible and some of that is intangible. So the tangible part are those things that are either clearly written into the script. Sometimes there's physical characteristics that are written into the script for a specific reason, have something to do with the storyline. That would be like Anne of Green Gables having red hair, right? She has to have red hair because that's a big part of the storyline throughout her story. So, if there's a reason a character has to have a certain color hair or there's a certain physicality, then those things are written into the script. That's the first most obvious layer. The next layer is the tangibles that the director has given me with regards to what they might more specifically be looking at. So, we can put out a breakdown that says, open ethnicity, meaning, anybody, any ethnicity and any height and, just basically any look. But in my conversations with the director may say, gosh, I've always pictured this character as Southeast Indian, or I've always pictured, I had that in a project, it's like, I'm open to anyone, but in my mind's eye, I kind of pictured this. So sometimes there's something that they're open to things, but they have pictured it a certain way. Or there's a reason that at one point we were open to anything, and now that has changed. And that happens when, for example, if we're casting a family of characters, right? And you would usually target, of course, the lead first. And so that lead would basically lay the groundwork for what the rest of the family needs to at least resemble to build a plausible family unit. And so at that point, that may have determined our ethnicity based on casting that lead. It may have determined sort of an overall sort of, fair or dark-skinned or, a heritage background. And the other thing is if we cast the lead and then we cast the parents, then of course that tells us we somehow have to believe that the kids belong to those parents if we see both parents. So it's things like that where we start out with all of those things could be very open, But one by one, as roles are cast, then that informs the other casting decisions that come after that. Okay. And so some of the times that can be, say, for example, they have to have a name, and the name is going to play the dad. Okay. Um, so you get that name, and they're the dad, and you have to have that name. So you cast that one first. And then everything again, now we have to believe that the children match. We have to have if there's a wife involved, the wife has to make sense with that dad. So yeah, it just changes as we go along. So those are the second layer of tangibles that get fine-tuned the further along we are in the casting process. Those are the things you have no control over, basically. The tangibles are the things you don't have any control over, because they just have to do with your physicality, your look, whether you resemble, the person you're supposed to be in a family with, or that you fit, if it's like a romantic story or a brother sister, or just a love interest, rom-com or something. That it makes sense that these two people, it's plausible that they would be attracted to each other and that they would be a couple. And so those things like I said, get fine-tuned as we continue on in the casting process. Then the third layer is the intangible, that's the part you bring. That's the one area you have control over. That's where we're looking for, just like that it factor, that approach to the performance or to the story, or to the script, that we can't write in a breakdown, that we can't dictate to you. It's where it comes from you, and you connect in a way to the story and the character in a way that only you can, and you then bring that to life, and then that resonates with us. So the intangible is all you. It's your unique approach to that character. Does that make sense? So it is a little bit of a process as those things become more and more fine-tuned. But when it comes down to actually making the final choices or narrowing something down from like a first read to a callback situation, or a callback to a chem read, as we get, broad, the narrow, at that point, we've probably honed in on the tangible stuff pretty well. We know the physicalities and things that we have, that are our parameters. It's the intangible part that we're looking to be surprised. We're looking to be inspired, to laugh, whatever the character is. We're looking for your DNA brought into that character and inhabiting that character in a way that just brings it to life in an interesting, real, honest, grounded way. And that's your part. So that's up to you. So hopefully that answers that. Laura Ann had that happen to me. I was cast in a film, then new director, and want a Hispanic family. Oh, I'm so sorry, Laura Ann. Yeah, it is hard. The director, you can't really say, sorry, director, you can't have that, because you hired that director for what they bring to the table and for their artistic vision for the story. So, but I'm sorry that happened to you. Hopefully, I've never had that happen where someone came in and actually changed it. I have had it happen where we are very, very close. We've narrowed something down, and so we didn't actually cast an actor, but they've gone through several like callbacks and worked very hard in the audition process and done well, and then something shifts and it's like, ooh, okay, we have to start over, for whatever reason that is. So anyway, I'm sorry that happened to you, for sure. That's a bummer. Diane, what are your feelings about paying perks that give you roles? Seen this more frequently for new fundraisers. I'm not a fan of needing to pay to act. Oh, I think you're talking about like fundraising on like GoFundMe, or most recently, I think the most well-known one is like the Angel Studios, where if you donate, then you get a line in a film. Yeah, not a fan of that either, because uh, there are no throwaway characters. There are no throwaway lines. Like, we put into every line, every character, great thought. I haven't worked with a director or producers who are choosing to do that. Um, but I mean, you can create situations to where you're not affecting the story or the overall quality. You're kind of just creating a moment, or giving a role like that, like to the hostess that greets you at the restaurant, or the nurse that walks in and says, um, the doctor will be in shortly, something like that. There are lines you can say that won't ruin the film, but that is not that is not the way to establish your acting career. You're not going to establish your career as an actor by giving funding to the point where you're basically buying yourself a role. And I think the idea behind that is for people who think it would be fun, or who are already supportive of the project, and they think, oh, that'd be super fun to, just be on set for a day and go through hair and makeup and do a walk on, something like that. But that is not, if you're pursuing acting as a career, that's not how I would say you go about it. So yeah, that's my feeling. If basically you're a glorified extra that they give a line to. Um, so yeah, that's my opinion, but it is being used. I see that. Ivy, do you have any recommendations for acting workshops in LA? I don't, Ivy, only because I haven't, I'm a little bit out of touch with the workshops that people are doing. There was a shakeup in LA several years ago. This was, gosh, it's probably been 10 years ago now, I would think, where there were people doing what's called pay to play, and they would have casting director workshops, and people would pay so they could get seen by the casting director. And that is not the way it should be done. SAG, it's not what SAG wants. It's not what, basically, you shouldn't have to pay in order to be seen by a casting director. And there's two sides to that. There actually were two sides to that conversation. But what it does is it then penalizes those who don't have the financial resources to go around and take a bunch of workshops all over the city just so that they can get seen. And so it actually went, and there's laws, there's actual laws in Los Angeles against it. And so there was a real crackdown at one point, and some people were actually prosecuted for it. And so it completely shifted the way workshops were structured. And so I've always approached workshops the same way as I did before that happened and after, but I'm even more careful after. But it did shift things. So where there used to be a million workshops all the time, where you could go and, so and so was the guest this week, and every week there was a new casting director who was coming, that has changed, because now casting basically casting director, it has to be an educational situation. So I'm a member of Casting Society of America, and we have even more stringent guidelines about how workshops should be structured. So I'm not supposed to take headshots at a workshop, so that it isn't, again, nobody is confused as to whether they're auditioning for something I'm working on, that it's clear that this is an educational situation. And workshops, I can't do a workshop where I just sit there and watch people and don't give any feedback, because again, that's not educational. That's just me basically having an audition day. And so I only do workshops where there is a true educational aspect, meaning I can give feedback, kind of like what we did last week. We've done in our monologue sessions, where we actually, there's some back and forth and we're learning and there's feedback and you take direction, all of those things. And so that's a very long way of saying that shook things up. And then, of course, COVID changed things because many casting offices basically gave up what had been their permanent office spaces, because they could now work remotely. So the majority of casting directors in the independent world, for sure, are working remotely. And those that work at studios, they're not going to be holding a workshop at a studio lot. And so I don't know post COVID who's doing what. It's something I should look into and kind of research a little more. But I don't have that answer. I'm sure they're there. The good news is that because of those guidelines being adhered to more strictly, chances are a workshop that you would attend or get involved in is hopefully better for you, meaning your experience financially, if you are paying financially for it, which you would, right? That it's legitimate to pay someone for their time to work with you and to provide education and insight. Of course, you get Tuesday nights free, so there you go. But it would be traditional for you to pay for workshops. So I don't get me wrong, paying for workshops is normal, and it is respectful. Someone is giving you their expertise and sharing their, like in my case, 30 years of insights and experiences. So, but they'll vary in prices. And so, yeah. So long and short of it is, I don't know. That's why I don't know, but I should do a little bit of research to maybe get some ideas. Again, I would check with your fellow actors and ask them what they've been to, what they've actually attended, and where they may have done some workshops that they really found very valuable. Showcases are great because then showcases, you're working for a number of weeks and then you do your showcase performance. And those are great. You get to work with other actors, and you get that experience of networking with them and just building community with them, and then you showcase what you guys have worked on for all those weeks. That's great. So anyway, so that's a to be continued, and I'll have to look into it and see. I really haven't post COVID seen what's going on. So Lorraine, is there a database for agents who focus on more than not faith-based and family-friendly films? No, there isn't. There is no formal database. I know that Laura May who runs or created Christian Casting and the Christian Casting community. I know she has a new app called It's called Room 4, and I don't know a ton about it, but it is an app. I think it's in beta right now. They're beta testing right now. But you can go on to Christian Casting Facebook page and probably ask about it or how you can download it. But that's one of the things she, I think, either has or is planning to put on as a part of that app is resources for those who are working within the space. So yeah, there's no formal database, but you can use IMDb Pro, and you should be using IMDb Pro, not just IMDb. You should invest in IMDb Pro. It's a very, very helpful tool, because that's where you can go and begin to research some of the people who are sorry, my dog is here and going crazy. Researching you can look up the films that you like or actors that are working in the space, and look who they're working with, and begin to educate yourself on who those people are and who's working with who, and you begin to see a lot of the same names repeated as far as like producers and actors working, directors working in the faith space. And IMDb Pro allows you to do that because you can just click on it, type in an actor's name or a film's name. It'll bring you the cast, the filmmakers. You can click on them, and then it brings up their, oh gosh, my dog is crazy. Anyway, you click on the person and it'll bring up their filmography. And so it's really great. So that's kind of the today's version of going to the library. I'm going to say something that probably most of you don't even know what it is, but you would go to the library and you'd have to go to the index card section, and you'd have to look up alphabetically and physically pull out an index card, and it would list like that author's books and where you could find those books within the library. So basically, that makes me very old, but yeah, you just do that one by one, and you start to kind of take notes and explore all of that. Like, make that a daily project. Just pick a film and start exploring who's in it and who are the actors and what else have they done, and look at some of their work. Like, you can either spend 2 hours of time going down the rabbit hole of sort of nothingness on social media. I mean, not nothing, right? People we love and care about, it's not nothing. But as far as professionally, advancing you professionally, you can spend 2 hours going down that social media rabbit hole, or you can spend 2 hours being specific about it. Okay, you have to see him because he's making an appearance. I wasn't planning on him making an appearance, but he is being feisty. Anyway, that's Rudy. So make that a daily practice, and just one by one, start to explore the films and the people you do know about, and look at who they're working, take notes, kind of begin that for yourself. So, Rudy is the Let's Talk Tuesday mascot. Yes, and he is feisty today. I see Michael Aller's question. I'm actually going to answer it because just for some clarification, he says, wait, where did it go? There it is. So The Chosen used to have a website for open casting calls. I did not see that this season. Did they stop casting through that? So we do not do an open call every season. It's a huge process, thousands and thousands of submissions. That is not something we do every season. We just can't. So we'll do it once every couple of seasons, as we sort of are dwindling down on the people we've gleaned from previous. But so no, that was not done prior to season 4. The last open call was done prior to season 3. I don't know whether they will do one prior to season 5, because they just finished filming season 4. So I don't know what that plan will be, because they haven't really started talking about, producers haven't talked about, when the timeline for season 5 and all of that yet. They need to recover from season 4. So yeah, so the website still exists and will be used if the decision to do another open call is made, but that is not an every season thing. Every season, though, it will go out on breakdowns, and it will go out into like faith-based casting or somewhere where you can get access to it and respond. But no, there won't be an open call every season. So just wanted to answer that. Chase, what are your thoughts about actors choosing to move into a bigger film market, timing, finding the right market, etc.? So I'm thinking that you're talking about physically moving, like moving if you're in a smaller city or a smaller area with regards to film and availability of projects, moving making a decision to move somewhere like Atlanta or LA or New York or Chicago or Oklahoma or Nashville. Those are some of the bigger markets that are continue to emerge. Texas is going to keep growing because they just approved a bunch of incentives there. So Texas and Oklahoma, it had been Oklahoma, and everyone in Texas would go up to Oklahoma because the incentives were so great, or are so great in Oklahoma. And then Texas approved on this last round of voting, approved some really strong incentives for Texas. So I anticipate Texas growing, and I would think that that will mean that the largest cities of Texas will emerge. So Austin has been a strong creative arts, performing arts hub anyway. A lot of creatives have moved there. People who left LA during COVID, many of them opted to move to the Austin area. Of course, Dallas makes sense. I don't know if Houston will ever emerge, but I would think probably Dallas and Austin are going to maintain the sort of major hub status. But so only you are going to know when it's time. You're the only one that's going to know when it's time. What I will tell you is that you shouldn't move to a bigger market until you have the tools you're going to need to make it in that bigger market. And there's a little bit of a catch-22, and I realize that can be challenging or frustrating for you as actors, but there's this thought, okay, let's take Atlanta. If I move to Atlanta, then there'll be more opportunity, then I'll get the films I need to get my reel done, and then I'll make it to that next step. And that is true, but there's also much, much more competition. So you're in a situation where you still need to be able to compete in that larger market. And to do that, you need those tools. So I would tell you to make sure that you have done all you can do in your home market to get as many of the tools in place, any sort of a reel or creating your own material so you have something. However many projects you can do where you are, try to get your resume as strong as it can be. Do your research and try to reach out to agents in that market, talk to actors in that market, people who are in that market, before you make the move. And I would tell you to go visit Dawn Long. If any of you guys know Dawn Long, she's awesome. And she's actually taking a 4-week intensive right now in LA. She lives currently up in Montana, but she was the lead of LifeMark. Well, she took, I think it was 3 weeks, and she just went to all these places to kind of understand. She met with actors in each of those places to try to understand what those markets are like, what those places are like. Could she see herself living there? Met with actors that she knows who are friends that live in those places, and talked honestly, like, what's it like to live here, and what do you think, and what are the positives, what are the negatives? Like, I would tell you to do all of those things before actually making a move, to determine where would be the best place. I would tell you a move to LA should not be made, LA or New York should not be made until you have a kick butt reel and a very strong resume, because those are the big time, meaning huge competition in those markets. And so you'll drown as far as trying to get seen and noticed without those things as a newcomer, right? Someone who lives there and that's your home, that's different. But as far as going there, I would advise you to not make a move to one of those two markets until you have an all the other things you've accomplished, so that you go there and you are ready to hit the ground running. You also, in either of those markets, you have to have a really strong financial plan for how you're going to um, pay your bills while you're waiting for those acting opportunities. And again, those two cities or those two markets, those two areas are far more expensive than should you choose the Oklahoma market. Atlanta, I know, is going up in price as far as um, just housing and cost of living, although it's nowhere near LA or New York. So, those are the things you want to keep in mind is what are you going to do for work in between, and how much money will you need to live on, and so yeah, I think so. You have to determine when you're ready as an actor, you have the tools ready, you've accomplished what you need to accomplish where you are, and you've kind of maxed out that market, and then plan, go visit, talk to the actors that you know that are in that market, meet with agents, because you're going to need agents who cover that market, unless you're in the Southeast, in which case you may have an agent where you are that covers the whole Southeast, which is very common. And then plan financially, strategically for how you're going to pay bills and live while you're waiting for those opportunities, because you don't want to have to start making your decisions about the roles you're doing and the work that you're doing out of desperation. So, and then pray. I mean, let's not forget that part. Pray, 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 pray that God would give you a peace and would give you wisdom, and that pray that God would speak wisdom through other people that you trust and value as well. And ask them to pray for you for that decision, and pray that God would give them wisdom and insight if there's something that they need to share with you, or that God wants to share with you through them. Yeah. So anyway, that's my answer. It's a very long answer, but that's my answer. Okay. What can I share about what can I share about Chosen Con? I don't have a clue. I don't know. I don't know anything about, I mean, I know what you know, basically. So I don't know anything beyond that. Because I'm not at the, let's call it, corporate office that is in Texas. And so when we're filming, that's just all consuming. And now that filming's done, everybody needed to be able to sort of just wind down and regroup and refresh. And now it's just now that specifics and things are getting worked out. And so I don't know. I'm sure based on everything else that they do, they do it all out. And I know the cast will be heavily involved, but beyond that, I don't know. I can't help you. So, but it should be fun. I would think it'd be fun. Okay, can you share some insights into the collaborative process between casting directors and directors when selecting the right actors for a project? Well, make no mistake, ultimate decision is the directors. Usually the directors, sometimes the producers, sometimes if there's so normally it would be the directors. There's a few times I've worked with producers that are very experienced, and they're sort of guiding a newer director, in which case they may speak more heavily into the casting process than they normally would, because there are certain things with their experience that they know need to be there, or from a business standpoint. So they may be sort of equal in the casting process with the director, but normally it would be the director. And so the collaborative process with the director, because I have a collaborative process with the director and the producers. The producers and I are often talking about the business side of it and the money, the whole pie. financial pie we have and how it's going to be divided between which characters and which roles. And that's constantly changing and moving. As someone gets cast, it changes things. And so that's a constant collaborative conversation with the producers. And that can very much affect casting, especially later in the casting process, because we have a whole pie to cut up into various pieces to cover the entire cast. Well, as pieces of that pie are allotted, we cast people, and so that a piece of the pie is no longer available. We get down to a much smaller slice of the overall pie available, and sometimes that may mean that roles that originally we were open to someone, traveling someone in from another city, or doing a modified local situation where, we pay for housing and cover gas. We may find ourselves at the end of the casting process, we no longer have the finances for that. So a role that went out on the breakdown as with no restrictions as far as location may, by the end of that process, be local hire only, just simply because we no longer have the financial resources to cover what we thought we might in the beginning. And so that does change definitely as we get further and further along in the casting process. There is just, at some point, there's only so much left financially. So that's my collaboration with the producers. My collaboration with the director is, it's usually the first meeting. So when I'm interviewing to be a part of a project, or let's say I've been hired for the project, of course, I read the script before I'm hired. But my first conversation is with the director. They will tell me those qualities that are most important to them. So when I create a breakdown, it goes to the director for their notes and their approval before it gets published, to make sure that the character qualities, both physical and emotional qualities of a given character, are what they reflect their vision. And then, like I was saying earlier, we continue to have those conversations as we go along. And as people are cast, then the next conversation is, okay, who fits with that person that we've just cast, or our two finalists, or talking collaboratively about, thoughts on what we like, what we're resonating with. And so that's just an ongoing chat until we get to the end. But at the very end, it's very collaborative as far as my feedback and, my thoughts. Sometimes we are in full agreement, and sometimes we aren't. Sometimes we have a very different point of view. And neither is right or wrong, but the director's trumps at the end of the day. But usually, if we've had good conversations along the way, we're usually pretty much on the same page as we narrow down. And so it's just an ongoing conversation as the dynamic is changing about all those qualities I talked about earlier. That the two layers of the tangibles and then the intangible. It's the same thing. So I can probably do one more question. Let me see. Brad. Okay, go for it. Brad, am I planning to attend Media Content 2023, Capernaum Studios? I don't think so. Only because I honestly don't remember when it is. Monty, I see you. Monty, I brought up earlier, I don't know if you were able to hear me, but I brought up earlier your note to me about the eye line on the monologues, and corrected myself and mentioned that you had pointed it out to me about the monologues last week should not have been straight into camera. I should have corrected everyone, had them look slightly off camera. That was Monty, and I see Monty's with us now. Okay, so that last question. So I don't know. Okay, September 25th through 29th. I will not be going. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful festival. It's just a schedule thing. It's just a pure schedule thing. I have other travel planned and potentially need to be in the Nashville area again, right around that same time. And then I have a family trip planned just a few weeks later. So again, it's just, yeah. So I don't think so, but things can change. It can always change. I will be at ICBM for sure in November, but content I'm not sure about. Okay, so I think that's it for tonight. I got a little long-winded on a few of those answers. Hopefully it was still helpful to you. And yeah, that the information. Oh, I'm reading your comment, Laura, when you said I was heartbroken. Oh, it was a lead. Well, you have a good attitude towards losing, getting that role and then having to give up that role. I'm glad you can see that perspective, Laura Ann, and not be bitter about it. It doesn't mean you can't be disappointed. We all have that, but sounds like you're approaching it with a good attitude and a good heart, not letting it derail you. So, oh, Robin, thank you. Thanks for that encouragement. Because sometimes I realize, okay, I just talked a long time and I don't know if that was helpful to people. So hopefully it was. All right. So next Tuesday, I'll see you all again. And I don't know if it'll be next Tuesday or week after, but I have a special guest that I'm going to have come join us again and kind of share on the actor's experience. And so, yeah, excited. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys, our little Tuesday family. And here, I'm trying to get our mascot here. See, now when I want him, he's not here. There he goes. Here's our Let's Talk Tuesday mascot, Rudy. Yay, Rudy. And he says adios. And yeah, there you go. Love you guys. And thanks for being here with us. I'll see you next Tuesday. And keep thinking of your questions. And appreciate you. Hope you have a great week. Do something every day that helps you. IMDb Pro. Just spend a couple hours. Go down some rabbit holes. Okay. Love you guys. See ya. Bye.